We're back with Coach's Corner and a wonderful selection of new questions. And if you've got a question that hasn't yet been answered, well, do let us know. All you need to do is drop that in the comment section below using the hashtag GTN Coach's Corner. Well, to kick things off this week, we have this question from Argo Miller. How not to get frustrated or disappointed when life has made some changes in your life, e.g. kids, balancing work and family life, and you don't train as so much anymore, but still take part in some races, triathlon and running, and find yourself way below your personal best results. I try to compete for fun, but I still sometimes compare my current results to my PBs. And speaking from an average Joe's perspective, nowhere near top of the field. Well, I'll go to start with, you are not alone. This is a really common, I guess, not a problem, but a common situation for so many of us, especially as you're getting older, irrelevant of time commitment. Usually, at some point, you're going to start to get slower. So you need to remember why you do the sport and also what's important in your life, because it sounds like there are other things that are important as well. So you want to balance all of that out and make sure you, at the end of the day, are happy. Now, obviously, performing comes somewhere in that equation, but probably not at the top anymore. So make sure you're realistic with that when you prioritize. And then it brings me on to goals. You still need to have some sort of goal, and these are going to be different goals most probably, but have something that's short term and longer term throughout the year. And something I love about a new year is it's like a new start, and that's where season's bests have been invented. So focus on those, the best time or the best event you've had this year, because on the whole, if you have a nice break in the autumn or the winter, your performance, say in June, is going to be much better than your performance in March, which brings me back to making sure you have a proper rest and some time off to just switch out from the sport and get that love back. And as you come back in, you'll feel re-energized and you'll just feel motivated as you start to get quicker. And you could, if maybe you've been doing the sport for a little while and you're feeling a bit stale, try to focus on one area within it. So maybe there's one discipline that you're not as good at as the others. Well, how about just doing that one for a while and really trying to focus on it? Or try and do a personal best on that within a triathlon. So say your swim is your weakest, then keep your bike and your running ticking over, but really focus on the swim and see if you can get a PB in your swim, even if your overall time isn't. So you're still benefiting something like that. Or you could completely flip it on its head and choose one sport for a little while and focus on that and see how quick you can get. And it's something you might have noticed that Mark, James and I have been doing recently as retired athletes. We have the same issue that we're never going to be quite as fast as we were when we're full time because we now have a job. And believe it or not, we don't get to swim, bike and run all day. We do actually have to, present and write scripts and things. So recently we've all been focusing on our running because compared to doing 3 sports, if we just run, in theory, we should be able to get close to our PBs, and we're all still chasing them at the moment when the dream is on. So that's one way of doing it. Another way to completely flip it on its head is just do a different event. So say you've always done Olympic distance triathlons, try and maybe do something longer or go for a shorter one or do a duathlon. If it's completely new, you'll pro fine, you'll get personal bests as you get used to it. And then my favorite trick is to go off-road. I mean, I've kind of doubled it and gone for ultra distance races where time really doesn't matter, plus it's off-road so you can't even compare it. And that way you'll be hopefully having fun and there's just no pressure on it. And it brings us back to the start of remembering why you do the sport. So yeah, you're not alone. I think we can go with that one. Our next question comes from Paul CB. Having used your half marathon training plan to smash my PB last year, thanks, I'm using that same training for my first 70.3 this year. Should half marathon pace in the plan be paced as my standalone run or as my expected half Ironman pace, i.e. slower, coming off the bike? Oh, and did your first pupil, Mr. Dan Lloyd, ever run his half marathon? Well, congratulations, Paul, on smashing your PB, and it's great that our program helped you get there. And just bear in mind that you're going to have momentum from that and you will be stronger. But first part, obviously, if you're adding in cycling and swimming onto it, it's going to be quite a lot more volume. So you might find that you can't quite stick to that amount of training for your running and you have to let a little bit give. But that's okay because you've already got some in the bank and you'll probably still be able to carry that over. And when it comes to the actual pace itself, yes, you might well be tired when you get off the bike, but that's part of the training. So you're going to hopefully be doing some brick sessions, so you'll get used to running off the bike. But when the actual race itself, it's going to depend on how hard you've cycled and how fit you are on the bike going into it as to how much that will take out of you and what you can run off the bike. Now, bear that in mind. So you might well run slower, or you probably will run slower off the bike than you would for your PB. However, you're still running as fit as you were when you ran that PB, and therefore I would suggest that you stick to that pace when you're going through the training program, because you still need to be challenging your body. You might find you need to do a few less runs, but when you're doing race pace efforts or anything that is a percentage of your pace, go off that PB, because I reckon if you train solidly for that in another cycle, you'd probably run another PB again if you've done a big one. So don't be limited by that time or the fear that you might be slower in a race, because it doesn't matter. Train as though you're running at that, because that's what you've done, and you might be surprised at how far you can get. Talking of half marathons, and well done for remembering about Dan Lloyd. Yes, sadly, he did obviously carry on with the program for a little while, but then I think it was shins that got a little bit sore and actually curtailed his running for a while, along with COVID, etc. So we need to get back onto Dan, I think, because I've seen on Strava that he's back cycling. So maybe it's the time to give him a nudge and get him back running again. But yeah, great, and good luck with your 70.3 as well. We've now got this question from Anne's. It says, another question about swimming. I hope someone can relate. I was a swimmer in my teen years and still consider myself quite an average swimmer, as my body still remembers the technique. I want to do a 70.3 this year again. However, I struggle immensely to start swimming. I think it's more of a mental thing. Even to think of myself going to the pool is something I do not desire anymore. I enjoy cycling, running, weight training. Some ex-runners or cyclists have the same issue with running? And do you have any advice on how to get to the pool easier? Thanks. Okay, and this is really quite coincidental, because literally a few days ago, Mark, James and I were having this exact conversation whilst we were sat on poolside in sunny Lanzarote, and we were all just saying, we don't want to get in the pool and we just don't want to swim anymore. And it's such a bizarre thing. So we've all, swam regularly, like it sounds like you have as well. We're all capable of swimming, but we sometimes or somehow have this block. Admittedly, this pool wasn't heated and I'm a wuss in the cold. So that was my excuse, but it seems that I can always find an excuse. So you are 100% not alone on this. And as for whether people struggle or find the same problem when it comes to cycling and running, I don't really know. I mean, I must admit, I don't like cycling when the weather's horrible in the winter, and I'll do everything to avoid that. But then I've got the turbo. I'm quite happy to jump on that, or a treadmill, and running wise, I don't really mind about the weather anyway. So whether people who do cycle, if they struggle, but obviously when it comes to swimming, we can go into a warm, indoor heated swimming pool. So why do we struggle? Well, it is mental. You've touched on that aspect, 100%. There's something about that black line. I guess swimming can be quite boring. We don't yet have something like Zwift with swimming, which would maybe help. But we're not alone either. The other day I was chatting to a pro who admitted to once going to swim in an indoor pool, got changed, got swimsuit on, got all the kit ready on poolside, and then turned around and went home and decided they couldn't do it that day. They didn't want to swim. So that's made me feel slightly better, but it still doesn't really help us, does it? How do we get over this, and why do we have this block? Well, I've actually got a goal and I've got to get back in the pool, and that's why it's kind of hit a note with me, because I'm just like, how do I make myself go? I know I can swim, and you need that incentive, because if you are a swimmer, it's a really small part of triathlon, so you're probably going to be fine, which won't help motivate you. However, there were a few wise words I got from my fellow presenter James last week when I was telling him about my issue with just being too lazy, and I couldn't see myself getting in the pool. I can envisage going on to training, but I just couldn't even vision diving in. And he said when they did the gravel triathlon, him and Mark, back in the autumn, so 6 months after he'd retired, he thought, yeah, I'll be fine, I can swim. Got 600 meters in, and he said he hit a wall, and it was really, really tough. And he was basically saying that, Heather, that's going to happen to you if you don't start training. And it made me go, yeah, actually, I need to stop being complacent, because swimming is very specific with the muscle groups and with its fitness. You'll have fitness that carries over, but if you want to enjoy your race, you need to get training. So think about that. You've got this goal of a 70.3, and the more swim training you do, or the earlier you start it, the more you'll be able to actually enjoy the rest of it, which I think is quite a good incentive. But beyond that, for a few little tricks and things to get you to the pool, well, book in. If you're in a pool that actually has to be booked, you have to pay ahead of time. That's quite a good incentive, I find, but maybe you want something that's a bit nicer. So get a friend to say, right, this is when we're going swimming, and you don't want to let your friend down. And remember, that post-swim feeling you get is just such a buzz, and you won't regret it once you're there. But that's probably not going to help you, but I would suggest going with a plan and a goal. Now, this helped for me, just having a really easy session, something that you know you like. Maybe you preferred hundreds, or you like doing kick work or swimming with paddles. Do something like that will take your mind off the time you're spending in the pool, or make it enjoyable. And also, don't look at the clock to start with. Maybe look at the clock to see how much rest you want, but just don't judge yourself before, and then, yeah, it'll just mentally be that much easier. And once you've gone, I reckon you'll be back into the groove, and yeah, you'll be back in no time. But sorry, that got a little bit deep. keep it personal quarters, as you can tell, but do let us know how you got on as well, and good luck with that one. This next question, however, I can't relate to quite so well. You'll see why. It comes from Dee Silo. It says, any tips on keeping sunblock out of the eyes when cycling on the road? I use headbands and water-resistant sunblock, but it eventually runs and my eyes start to burn towards the end of long rides. As you can probably tell, in the UK, we don't get conditions that are that hot very often, so it's not a problem we experience. But I would just point out that water-resistant sun cream is going to be great if you're doing water sports. However, it's not necessary if you're cycling your road bike on the road. So play around with finding a sport-friendly sunblock that's maybe actually better for sweaty or hot conditions. And note that water-resistant ones could actually stop your skin from breathing and cause you to sweat a little bit more. So if anyone out there has any great sun creams that they swear by for riding their bike, please do share those in the comments section below. And as beyond that, I mean, maybe look at actually avoiding having any sun cream above your eyes. Now, I'm not suggesting ride without sun cream, because obviously we need to make sure we protect our skin. But if you have a buff, I know you say a headband, but maybe you've got a buff that can come low enough on your head and a big pair of sunglasses, which there are plenty on offer now when it comes to cycling. So you wouldn't even need to cover any skin above your eyes, and then just the rest of your face, when hopefully it wouldn't be dripping into your eyes. So that's something to try. Maybe you already have done, but if you've got a chance of trying a different helmet, maybe go for something that's more ventilated, which will reduce the amount of sweat and keep you a bit cooler. And I mean, this is just a suggestion. You could go old school and get some wristbands and use them to wipe away the sweat. I don't know, that might be more something that would happen in the 60s, but it's a suggestion. Anyone else who's got anything better, please do share those as well, because we don't have every single answer, but we do try. Well, remember, if you've got a question you haven't asked, you can do that in the comments section below using the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed today, you found these questions and answers useful. Give us a like if so, and remember to hit that globe and subscribe.